Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into how obstacles can sometimes actually be advantages.
Uh-oh, sounds tricky.
Well, that's what we're going to explore. We've got some excerpts from a self-help book that lays out a framework for this idea,
Okay.
and then we'll look at some historical figures who put these ideas into action. So, have you ever felt like you're just banging your head against a wall?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, this deep dive is all about reframing those roadblocks, seeing them as stepping stones.
Interesting. I like that.
Yeah.
Stepping stones. So this book, where does it start?
It argues that obstacles, which we normally view as just like negative things, can actually be opportunity
Opportunities.
for growth.
Exactly. Even sometimes hidden blessings.
Huh. Hidden blessings. That's an interesting way to look at it.
Right. And to kind of illustrate this point, they open with this ancient Zen story
Hmm.
about a king who places this massive boulder in the middle of a road.
Oh boy, that's not good.
Right. And most people come along, see this boulder, and what do? They grumble, they complain, they give up. I can just imagine.
But then there's this one persistent peasant,
Okay, here we go.
and he struggles with this boulder, comes up with strategies, and finally figures out how to use a lever to move it.
Yeah.
What does he find underneath?
I don't know treasure.
Yes, a purse full of gold.
Wow.
And a note from the king.
So the king put it there on purpose.
Hmm.
It was a test.
Exactly. And the book uses this story to illustrate this idea. The obstacle in the path becomes the path.
Wow, the obstacle in the path becomes the path. That's really something.
Right. And it's not just about physical obstacles, like literal boulders in the road. The book also talks about mental blocks, societal limitations, even those internal obstacles we create for ourselves.
Yeah, the ones in our heads that tell us we can't do something. So how do we change our thinking to see these obstacles in a different light?
That's where the book's focus on perception comes in. And it's not about ignoring the difficulty of a situation, but rather choosing like a more empowering lens to view it through.
Okay, I see. Like changing your perspective.
Right, like how do you frame it in your mind? And to illustrate this, they use the really powerful story of Reuben Hurricane Carter.
The boxer.
Yes, wrongfully convicted, imprisoned for years. Now, you would think that would completely break a person, but instead of letting it destroy him, he focuses on what he can control, his mindset, his actions.
I remember learning about him. So inspiring.
He works on his legal case tirelessly, commits to self-improvement. He basically refuses to let prison steal his spirit.
He maintained his freedom even though he was physically confined. It really makes you think how often we make these obstacles so much bigger in our minds than they really are.
Absolutely. And Carter's story really embodies these three interconnected disciplines for overcoming obstacles that the book lays out:
Which are?
perception, action, and will.
So it's not enough to just like think positively, right? You have to actually
Yeah.
do something.
Exactly. You can't just think your way out of problems. You have to take action. But that action needs to be guided by clear perception, understanding the situation, and fueled by the will to see it through.
It's like a three-legged stool. You need all three of them to be stable.
I like that analogy.
Uh-huh.
And the book highlights another incredible story to emphasize the action part.
Oh, who's that?
Demosthenes, the Athenian orator.
Okay, I know that name, but refresh my memory.
He had a really severe speech impediment.
Oh, right, right. And he became this amazing speaker.
Right. But he didn't just wish he could speak better. He trained relentlessly, like talking with pebbles in his mouth, practicing speeches while running uphill.
Wow, that's dedication.
Total dedication. He really exemplifies action in the face of adversity.
Yeah.
He didn't let this impediment define him. He actually turned it into a source of motivation, transforming his weakness into a strength.
So we're seeing a pattern here, right? Our perception shapes how we experience something, but action is key to overcoming it. But what about when we just feel stuck? Like no matter what we do, we're just hitting a wall.
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's what we're going to get into next.
That's where persistence comes in, just not giving up. The book actually dives into this idea using two historical figures,
Okay. Who are they?
Ulysses S. Grant and Thomas Edison.
Okay, Grant first. Remind me what he was up against.
Well, during the Civil War, he was determined to capture Vicksburg.
Oh, yeah, that was a key city.
It was strategically vital, but he faced months of setbacks, just one failed attempt after another.
So what did he do? Just gave up?
Nope. He kept going, kept adapting his strategy, kept trying new approaches, and finally he made this incredibly bold move. He cut off his supply lines.
Really?
Yeah, and he marched his troops through enemy territory just so he could lay siege to the city from a totally different angle.
Wow, that's risky.
It was definitely risky, but it worked.
So Grant's story really shows us how important persistence is, but also flexibility, right? Sometimes you have to change course a little bit, try something unexpected.
Exactly. And then you've got Edison, probably the king of persistence. Think about how many filaments he tested before finding the right one for the light bulb.
Oh man, I don't even know, like thousands.
Thousands. It wasn't just luck that led him to the solution. It was just pure grit. You know, he believed that if he just kept at it, he'd figure it out.
And he did.
He did. And these stories really suggest that maybe genius is really just persistence, but disguised.
In disguise. I like that. But the book doesn't just talk up persistence, it also talks about the power of process. And to illustrate this, they talk about Coach Nick Saban.
Oh, yeah, Alabama, right.
Yeah,
But
built one of the most successful college football programs in history.
what's his secret?
Well, the book highlights something he calls the process.
The process.
Ooh.
Sounds intense.
It is. He emphasizes focusing on the immediate task at hand. So no dwelling on past mistakes, no worrying about the championship game that's like way down the road. It's about executing each step, each drill, each play with complete focus.
Makes sense. Break it down into smaller steps and focus on each one.
Exactly. And so how do we apply this kind of process-oriented thinking to our own lives? What do you think?
Well, I think it's about changing our mindset. Like, instead of getting totally overwhelmed by a huge goal,
Right.
we can just focus on that next actionable step.
Yeah.
And honestly, that can make a huge difference, not just in terms of actually making progress, but also in terms of like boosting our confidence.
Right. So it's like that saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Exactly.
But sometimes we need more than just process and persistence. Sometimes you need to bend the rules a little bit, be a little more pragmatic.
Yeah, sometimes you got to get creative. The book uses this great example, Samuel Zemurray, the banana man.
Okay, what do you do?
Well, he was trying to expand his banana empire in South America. Okay. And he needed this very specific plot of land, but two different locals claimed to own it.
Oh no, so what did he do?
Well, his competitor, the massive United Fruit Company, they sent lawyers to try to figure it out,
Okay, yeah, seems like a normal route to go.
right? Zemurray. He went straight to both of the claimants and bought the land from each of them.
Wait, he paid twice.
Paid twice, but he got what he needed.
Wow, that's pragmatism in
He
action.
didn't get bogged down in, all the legal stuff. He just focused on the results.
So it's about creative problem solving, right? Finding a way forward even when it's not the most obvious path.
Right, thinking outside the box a little. And the book highlights how this can apply to so many situations.
It reminds me of Richard Wright, the author. As a young man, he faced segregation and really limited access to books, and so what did he do? He used a forged note and a stolen library card to get the books that he needed. He was determined to learn, no matter the obstacles.
Both of those stories really raise this important question. How can we be more resourceful, more pragmatic, without compromising our values?
That's tricky.
It is tricky. It's a balance. But these figures really show that being flexible and willing to, challenge the norm can be incredibly effective.
Yeah, and when we talk about challenging norms, we have to talk about Gandhi and his approach to achieving independence for India.
Oh, totally different scale. But yeah, he really flipped the script on how to fight an empire.
So how did he do it?
Well, he used nonviolent resistance to basically turn the British Empire's strength against itself.
Okay, how?
By refusing to engage in violence, he forced the British into a corner.
Yeah.
Every act of suppression that they did just made them look more and more tyrannical on the world stage.
Like that judo thing, right? Using your opponent's force against them.
Exactly, and it's so powerful.
So how do we learn to identify those situations where we can use our opponent's actions to our advantage?
Well, I think it takes observation and strategic thinking.
Yeah.
You need to really understand the power dynamics at play,
Yeah.
the strengths and weaknesses of the other side, and then you can figure out how to turn those strengths into vulnerabilities.
That's like a chess game.
It is. It's about being patient and thinking several steps ahead. It's like that story of Alexander the Great taming Bucephalus, that wild horse that no one could ride?
Oh, yeah. What was it? Was he afraid of his shadow or something?
That's it. Everyone tried to break him with brute force,
Mm.
but Alexander saw that the horse was just afraid of his own shadow. And so he turned the horse towards the sun so that the shadow was behind it.
So simple, but so smart.
Right. And it worked. The horse calmed down.
So trust and understanding, not domination, won the day.
Exactly.
Which highlights another crucial point. Sometimes the best action isn't about relentlessly pushing forward. Sometimes it's about pausing, stepping back, reassessing, and changing direction.
Sometimes you got to know when to zig and zag, right?
Yeah.
It's so easy to just get laser focused on the obstacle and forget to think, wait, is this even the right way to go about this?
Right, like maybe we're so busy trying to move that boulder we don't even notice there's a path around it. And that brings up a point from the book that really struck me. It's not just about perspective when things are tough, but also when things are going well.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right, like it's easy to get complacent. You start thinking you have it all figured out.
Yeah, you get comfortable, you stop pushing yourself.
Exactly. And the book cautions against becoming too attached to our successes. It's important to maintain a growth mindset, even when things are good.
So you don't get stuck. Okay, so how do they illustrate that?
Well, they use the example of John D. Rockefeller. Built this massive empire, but he stayed incredibly grounded and disciplined.
He didn't let all that success go to his head.
Not at all. He was known for being super calm, and for his dedication to continuous learning.
So he never stopped growing, even after achieving so much.
Exactly. He knew that the world was always changing, and to stay ahead of the game, you have to adapt and evolve. Complacency, he realized, would just kill progress.
So for him, success wasn't the finish line. It was part of the journey.
Yes. And to really thrive on that journey, we need to embrace challenges as opportunities to grow and never, ever stop learning.
It's like that idea we talked about earlier, obstacles as stepping stones.
Exactly. As we're wrapping up here, I can't stop thinking about that quote from Marcus Aurelius. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. It really sums up everything we've been talking about.
Yeah, it really does. The very thing we see as holding us back can actually be the key to moving forward.
It all comes back to perception and how we choose to respond to what life throws at us.
So powerful.
So to all our listeners out there, what obstacle are you facing right now? And think about all the figures we've discussed. Carter, Demosthenes, Grant, Edison, Gandhi, Rockefeller. Whose approach really speaks to you? And how can you use their insights to transform that obstacle into an advantage?
Remember, you have the power to choose your perspective. You have the power to take action. And you have the power to cultivate the will to see it through.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's given you some new ways to look at the challenges in your life. Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep turning those obstacles into advantages.